Oh, recording has started. Latanya might be on there. She might be on it already.
Very good. Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. It is the 23rd of December, and I do that to make sure, because information about what we're talking about is changing daily. And we're talking about the coronavirus and our response to it and the actions that will help to end it for us as individuals, and then for us as a department and as a community and world. We have been encountering the pandemic for really the last year. This started a year ago in China. It was probably in the country by Christmas time last year, and then began to spread in earnest, and everything began to shut down in March. It has certainly impacted our department. We have had a number of people who got sick. We had a lot of people go into quarantine, and we've been managing and continue to manage patients at an increasing rate. We're in the wave now that is likely going to be the largest of the pandemic. It's made life very difficult. I, like you, hate to walk around every day in a mask in the department, in the stations, et cetera. So the pandemic has, frankly, one realistic way of ending, and that's when we vaccinate people to the bug. When I was born a long time ago, we were at the end of another epidemic that was quite similar, and that was polio. Polio was a dreadful virus that caused people to lose their motor functions, including their ability to breathe. We essentially invented ventilators to respond to polio. The polio was different in one way, in that it primarily affected children and, to a lesser degree, adults. A scientist figured a way to begin to vaccinate people and began injecting people to protect them from polio, and society began to reopen again. And then they developed ways to make that vaccine in a much more pleasant fashion, which was to take it orally, and then tested all the way down to babies. And we have then polio vaccine as a gold standard of what vaccines are supposed to be. The vaccine is given billions of doses. It's given orally. It has essentially no adverse effects, and has rid the world of wild polio, meaning we essentially have no cases of it on the planet that was once a scourge to humanity. You'll have to forgive me. I have a puppy, and for those of you who are listening the last couple minutes, she doesn't like being ignored. And I'm here by myself, and she, of course, gets a squeaky toy to make sure she can be irritating and get attention. That's what you hear in the background. All right, so with the lessons of polio in mind, we now have another severe respiratory virus. It started its viral life hundreds of years ago as a rather puny little respiratory virus that caused colds. For some reason, it mutated in the species in China and then broke out and began to affect humans at an increasing rate, and then spread worldwide. And that's where we are now. The virus is called a coronavirus. It is very similar to one that caused SARS in 2003. And the work on vaccines that we're using now began in 2003 with the original SARS outbreak. So don't let anybody think that we have, less than a year of work on this vaccine. It has been worked on since scientists realized that SARS or its cousin MERS or other coronaviruses could potentially mutate and cause human infections that were worse. No one anticipated COVID-19 being as severe as it is. But the work on that vaccine began in 2003. Then SARS mutated itself away for reasons we still don't understand. And we essentially don't have SARS on the planet at this point. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has mutated in ways that frankly make it more infectious. And the news of the day today is one of the mutations in England has caused it to even be more transmissible. But our ability to produce a vaccine to it and the work that is going on worldwide is not impacted by the recent mutations. There is another piece to the work that began in 2003, and that is when they worked on vaccines to this virus, other scientists were working on vaccines that could be administered to cancer patients. And simultaneous development of a vaccine to cancer and cancer cells was going right alongside the work that was going on for viruses. That resulted in a lot of technology that that brought us to where we are now, which is messenger RNA viruses, messenger RNA vaccines to those viruses, and our ability to safely immunize hundreds of millions of people, getting to billions of people eventually when we go planet-wide with this. So the first two vaccines that we have in play right now, Pfizer and Moderna, are messenger RNA vaccines. They're produced in a process that we've had for now 15 years or so. They can be mass produced, and this vaccine has a certain string of messenger RNA. They have to wrap it in fats or lipids that result in it not breaking down before you get it. It is injected in your arm and then has to be boosted 3 or 4 weeks later. And that vaccine is the first two sets of vaccines that are out. The next set of vaccines that will be out, likely January into February, are from AstraZeneca and from Johnson & Johnson. They are built on, again, old technology, but different technology using a different virus. It is similar to vaccines that we have been using for other diseases. The coronavirus itself is not a very complex molecule. And you've heard in many of the releases here, we have done a lot of work on developing vaccines and developing antibodies to viruses. And that technology is frankly pretty well proven. And we have these big vats that exist, including one of them in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where Pfizer has been making the messenger RNA vaccine, wrapping it in liquids, and then putting it in intense cold. And last week began shipping it. This week, Moderna will begin shipping a little different lipid, so it's stable at a little higher temperatures. So it only has to be shipped and stored at about 10 degrees below zero, rather than the 70 to 80 that was required for Pfizer. The use of both of these vaccines in humans went through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, and is proven to be safe. The vaccine itself is packaged in salts, not anything complex or that people can have allergic reaction to. And the vaccines are not live virus in any way. And you can't really talk about corona being live anyway. It's not an organism that is capable of living on its own. It's a little piece of RNA, and it has a way of passing, especially in droplets, from person to person. And as that form of an organism, it doesn't have a life outside of cells and outside of critters, including human critters. The vaccines are really small quantities of vaccine. The Pfizer is 0.3 cc's. The Moderna is 0.5 cc's. For all of my partners and for our EMS providers so far who've gotten it, said, there's really no pain other than a prick with a needle. The second vaccine that you get, which is 3 or 4 weeks later, has a tendency to make you have an achy arm and maybe have a low-grade temperature and maybe feel puny for 12 to 24 hours. That is because your immune system has to react to it in order for you to get the protection. So an important part of this is there's not a lot of local pain associated with it. It's an intramuscular vaccine given in the arm. It causes your immune system to react to the virus. It does it a little bit with the first vaccination. It does it more with the second, as it's supposed to. But then it affords some long period of protection. We do not know how long yet. It may be that we need a booster at some point down the line. But at this point, 2 injections gives you excellent protection from the virus. People who have had the virus can still get the vaccine. Only one stipulation. They want you to wait 90 days after your infection to get the vaccine for a couple of reasons. Number one, during that 90 days, you're protected. Number two, your body may react more vigorously, but in kind of an inefficient way if you've been sick recently with coronavirus. So for those of you who've had COVID in the last 3 months, they ask you to pass your turn in line the first time through to somebody who hasn't had it, because we still have a limited number of vaccines and more people who need it that can take it. You're protected, and you're probably protected for who knows how long a period of time, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. We don't know yet with the natural. But your immune system gets an upgrade to it if you get the vaccine in addition. And it works best if you get it outside of the 90 days after you were infected. So that answers one question. Question 2 is in regard to pregnant women and women who are breastfeeding. Right now, there's no indication that this is dangerous for either of those groups of women. And there is a good likelihood, particularly for women at risk, that they will have a better result from the vaccine than they would from getting the infection. I am well aware of this because my daughter, at 37 weeks of pregnancy, got coronavirus. She was sick. And fortunately, when she delivered 3 weeks later, she was not ill, and she had a little baby boy who was not ill, and they're recovering. But I had to really update myself on pregnant and infected. There are some of those poor women who get very sick with this and don't do well. But we have a vaccine that at this point we don't believe is unsafe for pregnant women or women who are breastfeeding. Remember, again, this is not a live organism, so you can't get the virus from the vaccine. You cannot get the virus, the sickness, from the vaccine. It has no capability of doing it. You also can't get the sickness from spilling the vaccine. So if we get caught in a situation where one of these ice cold containers breaks and for some reason the vaccine gets spilled, you cannot get sick from that. And again, it's a weird little lipid-based vaccine. It is packaged with salts as a preservative, so that none of that material is dangerous to you. All right, so we have a vaccine. We have the opportunity to get it as 1A or 1B providers. For those of you who carry an EMT designation, in particular, you're 1A. And for firefighters without an EMS designation, you are 1B. The state of Georgia has been kind enough to put us in the upper tiers and to give us the opportunity through our various counties to get the vaccination early on. Chief Jones and Chief Lay are making sure that we have the opportunity to get this vaccine. And very frankly, like many things we do in fire, we are the mop-up agency. And they have to thaw these vaccines, either one of them, and they have a certain period of time after the thaw to give them in order not to waste the first vaccines. If they get to the end of a vaccine day and have some extra doses left over that have been thawed, that either are going to be wasted or given to somebody, the plan is to call Fire EMS and say, send over some people who want the vaccine. We've got extra doses that we need to get rid of. So our usual mop-up duties may be in place for this vaccine as well. The piece two of you going and getting a vaccination is on your phone. They're going to give you an app, an ability to load an app on your phone. That app is called vSafe or Vaccinate Safe, vSafe. And that allows you on that to report any adverse effects you're having from the vaccine. And every once in a while, it will ask you on your phone, hey, how you doing? Feeling well? Any problems? By the way, have you gotten sick with COVID? And in a way that we have never had before, we will be able, as smart people who are healthcare trained, we'll be able to give immediate feedback on adverse effects. That is a new program that allows, again, the people getting it early. And one of the reasons they want healthcare people to get the vaccine early is so that we, as very attuned consumers, can give feedback about any problems with the vaccine by way of a smart app. That smart app also tells you when you need to go and get your next vaccine. We have, with the Pfizer vaccine, a 3-week-ish window, ideally around 21 days, but it can be 17 to 25 days. For the Moderna, it's a 4-week window, and the ideal period is at 4 weeks. But if you get it somewhere between 25 days and 35 days, that will be a good window. So that can match our shift schedules. In order for people not to feel bad at work, we are asking many people to get the vaccine at the end of their shift. That gives them about 48 hours to recover from any effects of the vaccine and capable of working the next shift. So across the country, that's generally for fire EMS people working 24/48s, how the vaccine will be scheduled. This is a little puppy here who just can't stand not having attention. So I will continue to try to keep her from barking and squeaking, but she's a very demanding little puppy. Sorry about that. Anyway, that your smart app will tell you when it's time to go get your second immunization. If for some reason you would fall off the planet and not be able to get the vaccine for the next 6 months, you still go get your second vaccine to get the booster and the immunity up to where it needs to be. Someday down the line, we will have better information on how long these injections last, and we'll know whether we need to get boosters or not. This is not like the flu. And don't compare any of what's going on with coronavirus to the flu. The flu each year is a different strain. It is A strains and B strains, and ones that have designations like H1N1 and H5N2, and there's thousands of those. And each year they have to change what we get in the influenza vaccination because there's a different strain that is circulating. Coronavirus is one bug, and although it mutates a little bit, it is still one organism, and we will produce a series of vaccines of different ways of attacking that little coronavirus. I told you there's 120 in development across the planet. You probably know the Russians distributed theirs, and they didn't do any safety testing on it. Now there's concerns that the Sputnik Russian vaccine will not be safe and will not be used. The Chinese also developed the vaccine early. They're very good at this because China is, in essence, the center of infectious diseases on the planet. And they produce a vaccine that they're trying to use now in their populations and then sell across the nation. What is important is that the Europeans are developing vaccinations, and the Africans are developing vaccinations, and the South Americans are developing vaccinations. There may be more to come, but by February, March, April, we may have at least 4, maybe 6, maybe 8 vaccines that will be a little different and targeted to a little different populations. Some of the future vaccines may have only 1 injection associated with them. They are trying very hard to create a vaccine that goes either in the nose as a spray or that you swallow. Those typically are easier, and like I told you with polio, are much better accepted if you're not giving them to people with a needle. So I want you to be aware that we will have more choices of vaccines as we move later into 2021. The choice of vaccines at this point really is not ours. Really, right now, the Moderna, Pfizer are what's available. The Pfizer is primarily going to nursing home patients. And I think all of you will appreciate that the nursing homes that have been a site of a lot of your runs for the last 7 or 8 months are early targets for the vaccination, and reducing the coronavirus impact on those nursing homes really important to all of us and would be really important to all of you. The Moderna vaccine has been much more distributed towards public safety and public health. And it is more likely that all of us will get the Moderna vaccine in our arms than the Pfizer vaccine, just so you're aware of that. Later on, at least one of the vaccines that's being produced has only one shot associated with it. That's the Johnson & Johnson, and that would be a single injection one time. It is going through its safety testing now. It hopefully will receive safety approvals in January into February, and that would be available. And in certain cases, it may be better for certain people. With a single injection, it may have more side effects. It may make your arm sore. It may make you feel worse, etc. No guarantees as to what that will be yet. But eventually, I want all of you to know we will have multiple choices for getting vaccines. I am, at this point, going to get my vaccine in the next week. And I am very happy to have this available. It is important at some point that we be able to return to our way of organizing our fire EMS responses, being able to go around without masks on at all times, reopen our sports venues and our concert venues and our churches and other things really important to us. And the way that we're going to do that is through the vaccine. For now, getting the vaccine does not mean we can take down our PPE. But I'm guaranteeing you, I'm keeping as close to that as I can. And as we get people who've been injected and vaccinated for longer periods of time and see how well they're protected, we can begin to take down some of our precautions. And I know how important it is for all of you to not wear a mask around the station and the apparatus. I know a lot of you like to go out in the public, into the schools and do education. There is a hope that 6 months from now, with enough people vaccinated, we will be able to do that. There's a big hope that next summer we will be back to concerts, entertainment, and churches, and that we won't have to be wearing masks. And you all, as members of the public safety community, will be vaccinated. I didn't mention yet, but important to mention. For whatever reason, this virus has not been as dangerous to children as every other pandemic in history. And in particular, below the age of 20, it has had very, very infrequent deaths and very, very infrequent serious complications. The vaccine manufacturers pushed through adult vaccinations. Pfizer's was for age 16 and over. Moderna's for age 18 and over. At the present time, there will not be vaccines for those under age 16 or 18, depending on which vaccine. Right now, children's hospitals are doing vaccine work for those age 12 to 18. And it's potential that the vaccines will be effective and safe 12 and over. And then they will do tests on children age 6 to 12, and then 2 to 6, and then newborn to age 2. I want you to be aware for your children at your home, we don't have a vaccine yet. You staying safe is important to them. Eventually, we will have a better idea of which of these vaccines may be safe for kids and able to get them injected. And of course, getting them with an oral vaccine or nasal vaccine would be better than an injection. So the issue with children now is still one where we're thankful they don't get very sick with this virus. Because of that, there's not a big set of pressures to get vaccinations for children. They know that adults are dying, and particularly older adults. And so people like me with gray hair are the ones at risk. And oh, by the way, 2 weeks ago, I buried one of my friends, a healthy 52-year-old firefighter who I've worked with for 30 years, who became ill just the way everybody else did. But his course was a steady downhill. He ended up on ECMO bypass and died. And 2 weeks ago, we had a funeral ceremony for him. We've had 8 other firefighters in my department there get sick. One of them was my son. So now my son and my daughter both with COVID. My son was much sicker, but didn't require hospitalization and didn't have the course that our other firefighter did. This is a dangerous virus, and it's not predictable who's going to get very ill with it. Although by the numbers, age 80 and over, extraordinarily high fatality rates, 60 to 80 high fatality rates, 40 to 60 still moderate rates, 20 to 40 not as bad, under 20 very, very rare to have bad effects. With that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask for questions. I know a lot of you have specific questions. I will do my best to answer. And the end of this, I want you to be comfortable getting a vaccine, comfortable recommending it to the other members of our department that are not on this webinar. And I want you to be confident that the department and your country is doing the right thing for you, getting a vaccine with good science behind it available for you and making you in the first tier able to get it. So Chief Jones and others, I'll open up the floor now for questions.
Okay. Hey, first of all, I want to say thank you, Dr. Augustine, for taking some time to provide that explanation and that guidance for us. And just to give some folks some background for the purpose of the meeting, Dr. Augustine has worked extensively, excuse me, with the International Association of Fire Chiefs and Firefighters, and to work on this vaccine. And he's considered, in my opinion, the subject matter expert that we're glad to have at our disposal that can kind of answer those questions for you. And as Chief Lay and I and Ms. Famber are working on kind of getting that consolidated list that we have to get to AFCEMA for the dissemination or distribution of this vaccine, our numbers are low. And when I'm starting to look at the numbers, I'm concerned that I understand people have apprehension about the new vaccine and all the things, but this is your opportunity to have a discussion with the person who can give you those answers. And myself personally, I'm the first person on the list. Chief Lay and I both are on the list to get the vaccine. And I wanted to intentionally understand that we're going to lead, and we're going to make sure you understand that I wouldn't put you in harm's way as well as put myself in harm's way. So I'm going to get the vaccine. I just signed up. I'm completing a spreadsheet right now with all the names of the volunteers that I've opted in. And my name was first on the list. And I'm getting ready to send that list to Chief Lay today. And I would hope that we would get our first wave numbers up. And maybe by the time Dr. Augustine finishes his last briefing and the word of mouth, that things aren't really as bad as they anticipated with all the side effects and what the vaccine is or is not, then our numbers would move up. Because operationally, we have to take advantage of this opportunity that we have. There's millions of individuals that wish they could be in the front of the line to be first getting this wave, and we have an opportunity to be included in the 1A. Excuse me, guys. To be in 1A is a good thing. I think the organizations have worked hard to ensure that we got pushed into the 1A category. So we have to take advantage of this opportunity for the sake of ourselves as well as our family. Because as you realize, as you go out and do the work, that we potentially could be that vector to being the one that's potentially spreading. I mean, that's for on and off duty activity. So us getting the vaccination now is going to improve our health and our wealth and everything else that goes along with that. So please, if you wouldn't mind, share this information with you. We're going to share the recording at the end. Ms. Famber's recording it. And tell your counterparts, tell everybody else there's going to be future presentations and recordings. Tap into that information. We're pushing out as much information as we get, we're sharing with you. So you can understand that there's nothing hidden, there's nothing suspicious about what we're providing. And, and I'm trusting the science just as well as everyone else. And I'm going to roll the sleeves up and get it. This is probably one of the first opportunities for my post-military days that I have an option to go ahead and get a vaccine, so I'm going to step up and do it, and I hope that our leaders here will join us as well. That's my hope. And furthermore, I'm going to give you this time now for the Q&A. So ask some frank questions, ask the questions that you need to feel comfortable with those answers. And Dr. Augustine can fill in the blanks for you. Because I know I don't have the expertise, so I would do it. But so take advantage of the opportunity here and ask whatever you need. And we're going to provide that format for you to go ahead and get the comfort that you need to make a good informed decision. So that's all I got for this morning. And I'm going to still hang on for anything else if anybody needs from me, but take advantage of this time now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And the reality is I have been in the fight with you guys since day one. Remember, this was going on when we were doing our shift trainings, January, February. I started my work with the CDC at that time. I have been working every week with IFC, IFF Joint Task Force on the coronavirus. We have been working very hard to make sure we have updated all of the information, thought through the safety and all the considerations. We fought very hard to get fire EMS people in the first tier. And we would love to see everybody safe and protected so that we can get back to our day-to-day jobs of taking care of our communities the way they deserve it. Questions, please.
I have a question. Well, actually, I have several. The first one is, are there any autoimmune disorders or weakened immune systems that would deter anyone from taking the vaccine?
The answer to that is, at this point, no. As long as you have an immune system that is capable of providing you protection. At this point, they are not excluding anyone from the vaccine program that has an effective immune system. If you're completely knocked down taking immunosuppressive drugs, if you're undergoing cancer treatment that's an active treatment at this point, your immune system really isn't capable of reacting appropriately to the vaccine, and this would not be the right time for you to get it. Other people who have ongoing heart disease, lung problems, etc., as long as they're not on high immunosuppressive doses of steroids or other problems, they would be capable of getting the vaccine, reacting appropriately to it, and that would be a very good idea for them.
And I have one more question. If you've had vaccines, like you've had the flu vaccine, but if you've had like the shingles vaccine within a certain time period, is there any concerns or issues?
Yeah, they generally recommend that you get those vaccines 30 days apart to give your immune system the proper ability to take and receive both of them. So shingles, influenza, pneumovax this time of the year, they want you to try to space those apart by 30 days.
All right, thank you.
Good questions, thank you.
Okay. And one thing which you mentioned to you folks also, there's AFCMA, they're coming out with some guidance exactly who's going to be eligible for the first. For example, if you've had a positive COVID test that you wouldn't be included, I think you have to wait 90 days. Chief Lay, if you have those statistics on exactly who can be included, and it almost falls in line with what Chief Denker was saying. I think that if you had a positive test, you had to wait 90 days after your exposure before you can get yours. And if you've had, I think they mentioned something about flu shot or tetanus or any of the above, to wait a few weeks, like Doctor was saying. So signing up for the list doesn't necessarily mean that when they start our rotation on the 28th of December, that you may be excluded from that wave because it's too soon. But we can catch you on that means you sign up for the next wave, and hopefully that'll be, Doctor, they give a time frame when they're going to do the next rotation?
It's when the next doses of vaccine come available. They're thinking that we will, about the first week of 2021, be getting our second wave of vaccines in Georgia. They think that's how the shipment schedule will occur.
So if you figure rough math of the path of travel, we may be eligible for that next wave by mid-January,
Yes.
or maybe the third week. So that may be our next opportunity. If you don't take advantage, you don't qualify for this first wave, that you'll jump in on that second one. So I think that so just kind of think about that in terms of, if I don't do it right now, this will be my only opportunity. So you will have another opportunity, but I would express that if you can do it now, go ahead and get signed up on this list that we're circulating out today. So that would be my hope.
I have one other question. If you take, we've read little articles about the injection by some of the nurses and other EMS people. One of the things that I've read is people complain about pain or, kind of like a fever in their arm. Can you tell us of any personal side effects that you know of, doctor?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens if your body is reacting appropriately to the vaccine. Again, for those of you familiar with these quantities, 0.3 to 0.5 cc's is a very small amount of fluid that's injected in you. That in and of itself really doesn't hurt that much into your muscle. What does hurt is what is injected into you is something that your immune system is supposed to react to. You want, with any vaccine, you want to build a response to whatever it is you're being vaccinated against. Tetanus, mumps, measles. All of you who are uniformed have had hepatitis B. And the way that your body builds a long-term defense against those diseases is you react to them. So that causes, over time, where the white cells are beginning to work where it was injected, a little pain in the muscle right there. And those white cells release some other chemicals that may give you a low-grade temperature, achiness across you, a feeling that you're kind of washed out for about 12 to 24 hours. So my partners and many of my emergency physician partners have taken the vaccine already and reported very minor effects. The second injection is more likely to give them that. And for our partners who were actually part of the trials, they said 12 hours, they felt washed out. They had some pain in their arm, but they had some muscle aches and maybe they had a low-grade temperature. So that is typical of your body reacting to something that has been given to it that it is supposed to be able to defend against in the future. So actually you want to be able to build that reaction. That's the reason to get the shots. And for all of you who don't worry about hepatitis B every day, you know that a little bit of pain getting the hepatitis B vaccination protected you from many nights on Fulton Industrial Boulevard, for example. Good question.
Saying,
Go ahead.
you don't have to get it up.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to remind everybody that we are trying desperately to get a list to the county today by noon. They've requested us to have names of individuals that will be eligible to take this first round, and I need to get that to them by noon. So if there's anybody that's on here that had not signed up, please make sure that I get the information ASAP that you are going to take the test, so I can put your name down and also get the information. I sent out a document, the questionnaire that needs to be filled out and sent back to me as soon as possible as well. So your battalion chiefs have that information. They sent it out to the captains the last couple of days. So if this changes your mind for you to take the test, please get that information to me ASAP.
Thank you, Chief. Further questions? Okay. Chief Jones, Chief Lay, we're at the top of the hour. Y'all, I have an email that I can be contacted through with any questions. jaugustine@usacs.com. I wrote that on all the materials a year ago. And if anybody would like to contact me with any questions or problems, be glad to hear about them. And I urge you all to think about getting this vaccination. Let's get ourselves protected, and in that way protect each other, protect our families. That's really important, and then protect the public that we have to serve. So I think you will, when you weigh the risks and the benefits of the vaccine, you'll want to get the vaccine and be protected rather than take a risk of getting ill with this dreadful disease or of spreading it to other people. And that's where we are now.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, thank you again, Dr. Augustine, for taking some time. And so we're gonna definitely disseminate this information for the sake of the body, so everybody else can kind of be aware. And if you have Q&A stuff offline, you can forward those questions to your battalion chief, up to Chief Lay, and reach out to Dr. Augustine directly. Would probably be better to just kind of get a list of all the common Q&As and send them over. And that way we can share it with everybody else as far as what everyone's thinking. So yeah, so we're not going to drag it out, but thanks, Doc, for giving us a little time this morning. And we're going to make those other recordings available, but reach out, make sure you folks sign up on time and get in these next couple briefings, because this thing is going to move. If we take advantage of the opportunity or not, it's going to be there. And since we're hosted in our location, it's going to be at Wolf Creek. So there's no sense for us being the hosted location, being a SPOC, for us not to take advantage of it, and everyone else does. That just doesn't make sense. So folks, you guys have a good morning. And like I said, we're available if you need us. And just stay tuned for more. So thank you again, Doc.
Thank you. Be safe, everybody, and enjoy the holidays. Thank you all very much.
Happy holidays to you. All right. Goodbye, folks.